This is Synthesis TV, keeping you on the edge of technology and business.
Grant Hinds is passionate about digital entertainment. His experience in broadcast television, national radio, YouTube, and live streaming on Twitch is the root of his passion for these mediums. He's produced videos alongside some of the biggest stars in the world, hosted TedX, and covered the world's biggest video game events. To me, sounds like he could be a little bit of a nerd, but he isn't really. Grant, are you?
Yes, I'm a massive nerd. What's wrong with that?
Oh, are you? No, nothing. Your chair alone screams nerd, eh?
Yeah, that's fine. At least my back is good, you know.
Right, exactly. All right, so you own it. You own it. This is your world. This is you walk amongst those who identify as nerds.
Well, yeah, I think Simon Pegg actually said something really interesting when he defined nerds. And one of them is just allowing yourself permission to get excited about something. And that's what a nerd is. It's somebody that's genuinely enthusiastic about something and is not afraid to show it, you know? And I think that's how I've always been like that. I've always kind of frowned on the judgment of just enjoying nice things in life, you know, films and lore and just being inquisitive. And that's what keeps me a nerd, I guess.
And if you can get excited about Lego, then so I mean that's awesome. That is great, because why grow out of things?
Yeah, exactly. I think that play is a very important part of just humanity. I think society kind of tries to kill the concept of play. You know, bosses don't like you to be playful in some senses, but I think that's what keeps you creative, and that's what keeps you coming up with strong lateral ideas and approaches to living and existing on this planet, because this is the one life you've got. And if you aren't playing and you aren't like challenging yourself in these ways, playing is essentially just challenging yourself. A set of Lego, building that Lego is a way of you spending time challenging yourself, and challenging yourself can be fun. You know, it's like solving a problem can be entertaining. And when you are proactively working at those things inside your mind and approaching these problem solving exercises as fun, you start getting better and better at it, and start seeing the doldrums of life as this really entertaining, exciting experience.
And these worlds have now come together. And we're starting to see a lot of that with social media, with YouTubers, with the access that we have to different people who are problem solvers and who look at life a little bit differently. I was reading, in fact, some information around the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, and the amount of content that was streamed, and the people that did phenomenally well around this wasn't necessarily wasn't mainstream media. It was people who were playing in this other space, the content creators, and the world looks very, very different unless we figure it out as well. You know, unless mainstream media, for example, figures it out. I think they're going to be on a hiding to nothing. What do you think?
Yeah, look, mainstream media is starting to work this stuff out, but I think that everybody in actual fact is some form of content creator, because, you know, we're expected to upload on all these social media websites as a marketing exercise all the time, as frequently as possible. And it's hard if you are a team of people and things have to go through a team and approved by that. But as an individual, if you, for instance, the Amber Heard trial, you know, there were a lot of lawyers that were creating content around what was happening. And that's their profession. But on the sidelines, they were spending time creating content, re-explaining what was actually happening in the court, because not many people understand how a court of law functions or how American law functions, for instance. So there's two things that happen out of that. Firstly, they get to learn how to be creative and express themselves creatively. The second thing is that they are exercising lateral problem solving of their own. They are representing what they're doing. And the third thing is that they're establishing themselves as an authority in that space. They might not be the best lawyer in the world, but they are now suddenly becoming the most known lawyer. So that has a dual effect. Obviously, you become well known and you probably will be able to net more clients as a lawyer. But the second part is you probably could charge a little bit more because you're seen as an authority in the space. And that's why a lot of people are stepping into content creation. It's not just what it was 10 years ago. It was just like YouTube vloggers sitting in front of on their bed talking to a camera. It's now the space is opened up to hundreds and thousands of professions where you can be seen as an expert in your field by creating content that people want to consume.
And what's interesting is as well is it's none of these are infomercials anymore. The value that you bring is the information that you share. So you can't talk to people and say, well, come to me as a lawyer because I've really got all of this great intellectual capital, unless you're sharing it and unless you're establishing yourself as an authority, as an expert, you ain't one, or you ain't perceived as one.
Well, you're not seen. That's the thing. Right. It's the strange. I always look at real estate agents as one of the hallmarks of this. They're still on this archetype of having their faces on side of like billboards and like seats. Why? But there's no reason why I would call that individual to sell my house. Like, in fact, in this new world, it's somehow a bit of a deterrent because they might come across as expensive, or like I think that real estate agents who are tackling new media are approaching it differently. They work for a brand. They are brands as individuals. So when they moved from an agency to another one, they still carry over their authority to that space. And when they're on platforms like TikTok, they are explaining ways or inside scoops for the audience of how a real estate agent operates, how they generate money, how they can save you money, how he's currently or she's currently saving their client money. And that gives you some sense of trust that you can go like, you know what, maybe I've seen this guy or this woman on TikTok a couple of times. Maybe I should give them a call because, before selling my house, I don't want to approach Remax or a big agency because they might be taking me for a ride. Because they create that differential, that power differential. It's also interesting because I've always wondered remember when we used to see pictures of homes in the newspaper on the weekend, and you could page through it, and even now on Instagram when people are selling houses and there are never people in it, and you see this sad garden with an empty child swing, and it feels so empty. Lifeless.
I'm thinking, put a child on there. You're selling me a lifestyle. Why not walk through that property and talk about a creative visual of how you can live, how your family can live here. It's always perplexed me. But things are changing, aren't they? Yeah,
things are changing, but they're also kind of staying the same. So a lot of people don't know this, but I studied visual communications at AAA. 2008. That's when I graduated. So I actually have an advertising background. And a lot of the principles when it comes to advertising still apply, even on social media. One of them is billboards, for instance. When you want to have an effective billboard, the average exposure to that billboard is about 7 times. So you want your average customer, before they even make a decision, to see your billboard roughly 7 times. Right. That means that they're more akin to spending money with, they're more familiar with your brand or what you're trying to sell them, and might be more sympathetic to it. The first time it's a bit abrasive, right? You see a billboard, you go like, I'm getting advertised to, but by the 7th time, it's kind of a part of your life. And it's the same thing with social media. If you are a real estate agent and you're on social media, using that example again, putting out as many of those videos as possible, and hopefully a couple of them are getting into somebody else's For You page or in their line of sight, and seeing you about 7 or more times, then they start becoming more familiar with you and know that you aren't necessarily trying to directly hard sell them something, and just your involvement, just by you watching their content, you're facilitating their success, and you get to know them as individuals. And that, even though the mediums have all changed, a lot of what stays the same.
So have that same estate agent helping the new buyers into their house and, bringing them a gift when they arrive. Now
we want commission on this house. If an estate agent is watching this and using this, we want commission on your next property.
We do, absolutely. we most definitely do. But it's a great example, and it's nice to do that. How does somebody, so there's different aspects, obviously, around content creation. And the examples that we've used in the real estate is we're actually selling a product. We're doing it maybe through information, through familiarization, through all sorts of things. But on the other hand, there's pure content for the sake of content. So, for example, we had the Synthesis Sunday podcast, the COVID podcast during COVID, and we got an expert in, and every Sunday he would answer questions around where we were at with COVID. We got to around about 500, more than 500,000 views of those podcasts, which is really, really tremendous. We built up this following. But it's always interesting and that was very specific. It was a pandemic. People were nervous. It became part of their Sunday routine. They would send in their questions, and so it evolved. Where does one go with something like that? Do you evolve? How do you look at it and say, where do we go from here?
So, I always see content creation as a lateral problem that needs to be solved when it comes to the business aspect of it. So there's so many different ways to make money on social media. And that, for a lot of people, isn't necessarily the end goal. Like the real estate agent example, their end goal is not necessarily to make money off of their TikToks, if they're producing TikToks. Their end goal is to sell houses, because that's where the money is. But they understand that the content that they're creating facilitates the sale at the end of the day. And very much the same way when you buy magazine exposure, you know that the magazine article directly isn't going to fund you. You're going to lose money. It's a loss for you, but you're going to generate it hopefully by people coming to your primary product. So you have to identify what your primary and your secondary your income sources are, and then once you've done that, you can also work out what your tertiary income sources are, and if there's anything that you can stack in. So the more tertiary income sources you have, the better. Right?
Explain tertiary.
So tertiary income sources would probably be like, it depends on the individual, but it could be Google AdWords, revenue that you're generating. It's coming directly from the content that you're creating, but it's not the reason you're creating the content. So in my situation, I make about 1,000, 2,000 Rand a month off of Google ads on my YouTube channel. And that's just what I would consider tertiary, because I'm not focused on it. And if I would not be doing what I'm doing if that money wasn't coming in, but it is something to be aware of. The same with affiliate marketing. A lot of people would be producing content purely for affiliate marketing, which would be a primary income earner for them, or just as a kind of a tertiary thing where they just have it like in their bio and saying, hey, if you want to support me, go do that. So it's a nice to have. Whereas I would consider primary as like the main objective focus of that piece of content that you're putting out. A good example is a lot of tech YouTubers will create content where they will 5 pieces of tech under $50 that you need. Right? And they will literally pull that off of Amazon, have the affiliate link underneath. The video will get like 50, like 1 million views. And if a small percentage of that audience decides to buy something from that affiliate marketing link, they will make a significant amount of money. And they're creating that content intentionally to make money. Whereas some other people would be creating more editorialized content without a primary income earner. Maybe there's an ad that they've embedded, or the video is sponsored by a third party. That would be their primary focus. So that's what I would suggest if you're doing a podcast, is to work out, can you bring on a brand? And it doesn't have to be for a lot of money. It can be like, if your audience is X big, and you'd rather sign on a client for a couple of grand a month for 6 months. That's money that you wouldn't have seen. And then allow them in the contracts to open end your revenue streams. So if you can put affiliate marketing going, like, hey, we're using our gear, or our gear was sponsored by this third party. Thank you so much to them for doing that. If you follow this link, we make a percentage of every purchase. So thank you so much for doing that. So there are, there's a way to do it. So you just have to look at your business model, when you're creating content, and then work out where your revenue streams are and how you can tie them in. And if they're offensive, if they're like too top line, and people are like, I don't want to be here, they might might affect your audience at the end of the day. Audience is always first.
Yeah. So if anybody does want to sponsor me for running gear, okay, that's probably not a good fit at all. But all right, we'll figure something else out. How do you differentiate yourself? Because there's so much content, and to be unkind, there's so much rubbish out there as well. How does somebody find good content, and how do you differentiate yourself if you are producing good content?
Okay, so let's talk firstly about how to differentiate yourself, because I think this is something a lot of people don't put into practice. Again, it's an advertising principle. You find out what your USP is. If you're a brand, you must have a USP. And I don't know about from the audience perspective, USP just means that your unique selling proposition. Like, what makes you unique? It's unique, meaning one thing. So choose one thing. You do it with products all the time in advertising. You'll be like, this is the brightest light bulb on the market. So you would try, when you're creating adverts for that particular product, you want to dramatize that selling proposition that sets you apart. And it's the same with yourself as an individual, or your TV show, or whatever you're trying to produce. What sets your piece of content, or you as a content creator, apart from everybody else that's creating the same thing? In my situation, I have two things, but my primary one is that I'm passionate. Like, as soon as you started this conversation, you actually said it back to me, like, you're just a huge nerd. And I'm unashamedly excited about what I'm talking about. And because of that passion, it kind of sets me apart. There are a lot of other tech people that are a little bit more cynical. They're a little bit more, objective. A lot of people don't like technology. But they're still creating content about technology or games. Whereas I just always have been. When I was at varsity, Half-Life 2 came out. I don't know if you're a gamer at all, but Half-Life 2, one of the greatest games of all time. First game to introduce physics, like proper physics into a game. And I was so excited about this game. I was working at a restaurant in the evenings while I was studying to pay my way. And I set aside my 300 Rand, because games were like 300 Rand back then, for this game. I couldn't pre-order it, but I went to the store on the day. And I remember just getting just so enthusiastic about it at college. I was just giddy. I was just like shaking. And somebody who was older in the class just turned around to me, and he's this German guy, and he said, "Grant, you need to have sex." And I was like, why can't I be a human being and get excited about something like this? It's a video game, and I've always been like that. So that's what sets me
video game over sex.
There are a few of those. I'm sure if I did some research, that'd make a great YouTube video. Thank you.
It really would.
So essentially, that's how I would look at myself. And the second thing is, I consider myself helpful. So the content that I need to generate always needs to have the helpful spin to it. It can't just
generosity. It's generosity with information.
Yeah, because I feel like you can be a Wikipedia article in a post, and I don't always hit these marks, by the way. Like, this isn't like I'm not necessarily brilliant at this stuff, but I think those fundamentals, once you get that stuff about what you're creating, it's easier to stay focused because you know what your objective is. And then it's also, secondly, it's easier to understand what you're producing. So if you build a ship and it's not going anywhere, you don't know how to sail it. But if you know the direction that you're sailing your ship, it's so much easier to like write down ideas or what kind of content you want to produce. Even that, passionate and helpful. Like, if I'm passionate about something that not a lot of people are passionate about, editing video on your mobile, like on your phone, and I make some really helpful content, a series of content around that, guarantee that's going to do pretty well, because there are a lot of people searching for it.
And then it's another advertising principle, that there's an appreciation that you've given something for nothing, and just because you could.
Yeah, and then also the brands want in on that. So the brand deals will come. They also want to be seen as passionate about what they're making, and they also want to be seen as helpful. So they come in and along those lines. It's not just about like a billboard with lots of viewers. It's going, we're partnering with a content creator that shares the same values as us, and that is what I would consider my primary income. So and it set me up well where I've partnered with really good brands who understand that and allow me to create content that is helpful. So I did something now. I don't know if I'm allowed to speak brands, but you can beep this out. But I did something with Samsung with their home appliances, and it's technology that I wouldn't necessarily normally touch, but they have some really interesting and exciting smart use cases inside, like the air conditioners, for instance, which it can find out where you are in the room with motion detection and avoid you, so that you don't have air blowing on you 24/7. And like to me, firstly, that's super helpful as a piece of tech, and it's easy to get excited about that. You know,
and can save marriages, no question.
Save marriages and office relationships. You know what it's like when there's someone sitting in the office and like going, I have to sit underneath this air conditioner and it blow on me the whole time because so-and-so across the way is cold or hot. Yeah. So yeah, anyway, so that's a good example of that that I can pull from my memory.
So, I mean, unfortunately, we don't actually have a lot more time, even though I can have this conversation for hours. And we definitely bringing you back to Synthesis TV. But where do you think this is going?
I think it's becoming kind of the standard, you know, if we carry on talking about advertising, for instance, and brands partnering with content creators, I think it's becoming de facto a huge part of, we used to call it below the line and above the line marketing. So above the line, anything that's like, you know, on billboards or on TV, very visible, and everything below the line is what they call like, you know, less visible stuff that was on digital. And this would usually be considered below the line, but it's slowly becoming quite a primary part because people's eyes are here with their phones. So you have this army of people that are supporting your products, or people that the brand wants to get behind, that people can relate to, and that's becoming quite a standard. And then secondly, I think from a creator's perspective, I think if you are a business or a content creator professionally, I think if you have any kind of profession, you are a content creator. Even if you're just making stuff on LinkedIn, you're being visible, and people want to hire somebody that's visible online. People don't want to hire somebody that's invisible online unless you're in cybersecurity or something. But you want to be known for what you do, and being a good content creator, working out how to market yourself on an open marketplace where you're being employable is very important. And then secondly, the gigster market, you know, where a lot of people are subcontracted, has just bloomed. You know, stuff like Uber and, you know, Mr. D, and where individuals are subcontracted and paid per job, has just like opened up the marketplace for a lot of people who wouldn't be employed. So they're more self-employed. And it's super important that you are able to, as somebody that is making subcontracted income, you are able to present yourself online as somebody that's trustworthy, that's good at what they do, and is hireable for a long period of time. And that's a big part of what it means to make content online.
That is absolutely awesome. No doubting, Grant Hinds is passionate about digital entertainment. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us. You definitely coming back for another conversation if I can help it. I'm Howard Feldman, and this is Synthesis TV. Thank you for joining us.